So, the composition of the English language. Oh, that looks like the moon in this video here. It's not actually the moon. It's just a street light that's quite bright. But yeah, the composition of the English language, I find it to be very interesting. Of course, many people will know that English has primarily two sources for its vocabulary. It has Germanic sources, so Anglo-Saxon and Norse mostly, and then it has Romance sources, so French and Latin mostly. We also have some kind of Greek words and words from other language families in English, but most of the words, most of the grammatical structures, the way that English is put together, is either Germanic or Romance. And indeed, people can and do debate. Wow, there's suddenly vehicles all over the place. People can and do debate the extent to which English is a Germanic language or a Romance language, some kind of compromise between the two. It's often noted that out of the 100 most common words in English, maybe 98 or so of them of Germanic origin. On the other hand, up to 60% of English words may have their origins in Latin, and even more if you add in Greek as well, because obviously Greek and Latin share a lot of vocabulary. Yeah, English is a Germanic language, most people agree about that, but it has a very strong Romance influence, and that's felt even in the grammar. So obviously most of the grammar of English does come, this is very steep, it does come from a Germanic source, right? The way I'm putting words together, very much Germanic, wouldn't be that different in a Scandinavian language or Dutch or German. But there are Romance influences on our grammar, right? So an example I always think of is how we pluralize. So in German, for example, if you want to pluralize something, often you add like an N to the end of a word. In English, you generally don't do that. In English, the common way to pluralize words is to add an S at the end, and that, I'm fairly sure, comes from Romance languages. I think French also does that. Most of the sentences I'm making now, right, most of the words I'm saying would be of Germanic origin, because the more kind of simple vocabulary, the everyday vocabulary in English, it does come from, you know, Anglo-Saxon, Old English, kind of. But then the more complex, sophisticated, so both of those words would be from French, the more complex and sophisticated vocabulary of the English language tends to be more Romance, more French and Latin. And this is the coolest thing, I think, about the English language, is how we've kind of got these two different registers, right? We have the more base Germanic register of English, and then we have the fancy, refined Romance register. And I think this is something that, obviously it's not unique, right? For example, Japanese has almost as much Chinese vocabulary as it has Japanese vocabulary, and so that's kind of a parallel. But in terms of European languages, English is quite unique, and certainly the range of influences we've got, but broadly Germanic and Romance. And so just to give you an example of what I mean, guys, often just basic vocabulary terms that we have in English, there are Romance versions and Germanic versions, right? So vocabulary means words, right? So vocabulary would be the Romance version, and words would be the Germanic version. Right now it is cold and dark, fairly cold and dark here, but I could also say that it's frigid and can't think of a Romance equivalent for dark, but certainly that's a light which makes it brighter, or you could say in Romance terms it illuminates, right? And we have many examples of this. You know, you could ask me for an example, or you could inquire, right? I'm standing on the edge, you can't really see, I'm standing on the edge of what we could call a stream, but would more accurately be called a canal, right? So we have Romance and Germanic versions of so many words in English. And, you know, I could say that I'm going down to the shop to trade, or I could rather engage in a commercial exchange at the market, you know. And obviously the former is mostly using Germanic terms, the latter is rather using Romance terms. I think it's such a cool thing, such an amazing thing about English, that without even thinking about it, we combine all of these Romance and Germanic terms, all of these terms, whether they're from Anglo-Saxon, they're from Norse, they're from French, Latin, even, you know, Greek, Dutch, whatever source they're from, but we just put all these words together without thinking about it.